Welcome, and thanks for tuning in to the Ponzi Minnow tying tutorial. This is a white-collar crime version of the Jewel Thief series and involves Kreenik fibers. In this case, I'm using Cascade Crest Tool Mirror Wrap Pearl, 3/16 dumbbells, 5/30 seconds, cone heads, a little bit of ice dub. Pretty simple. Tune into our dumbbell attachment video and our tailpiece tying video to get to this point. First and foremost, once we have our size 2 jig hook in place here, we're going to start with a little thread bump right at the back here, and then we're going to string up our tailpiece that's ready to roll. And when we attach it, we're going to attach it going into that thread bump so that it kicks the joint wire up and keeps it from fouling. This is a bug that's very durable and can be fished, ramp to ramp, the same fly just about, and is just one of those flies, if you're feeling a little lazy and you just want to fish the same fly all day, is probably be good to go. Highly effective. It's just too good to be true. So once we've attached our tailpiece and our joint setup here, I've got 2 clumps of Kreenik fibers. One that's a little more dense, that's the same density as the tail skirt, and one that's a little thinner that we're going to use for the last chunk. Real quick, before we attach our first skirt here, we're going to put a little UV ice up here, and that's what our Kreenik fibers are going to flare off of once we roll wrap them. And we've gone over some roll wrapping here, but I've got my Kreenik fibers kind of set up here, and I'm going to trim the butts pretty close to where I want to tie them in, and that's again going to allow it to roll wrap and get you that 360-degree skirt around the joint and everything. I'm going to cut them about 1/3 into the body of the tail, and that's going to give us the perfect profile continuation here. And just make sure those are going all the way around. If they're not going all the way around, you can kind of unwrap and use your fingertips on your vice hand to roll them around and get them where you want them. Next up, we're going to attach our mirror wrap here, and I like to trim this stuff a little bit more than, say, polar chenille or polar reflector. It's a little bit more fragile, and in this case it's similar in tone to the silver Kreenik fibers, and it can be a little tougher to discern which one is which when you go for the final trim. So let's trim this, especially the first 2 inches, let's say. We'll trim it down to, maybe 1/4 in total length at first, but up to about half of the total length of the fibers before we attach it. And we're going to attach it right on the belly side there. This stuff is really good, and you don't need as much of it per se as, say, a polar chenille or a polar reflector. Its fibers are a little wider. I really like it, and as long as you handle it a little more fragile as you're palmering, you'll be in good shape. And just work that forward. We got our bobbin right up behind the dumbbells, and we're gonna palmer that forward and tie it off. If it starts kind of unraveling a little bit, just be careful and keep it together. Pull all your fibers back, and we definitely need a nice clean thread neck here. I am going to trim this part right now so that I don't have to deal with it. It's virtually impossible to trim it properly following the next few steps. And I like to trim the top part of it right here, to be just about the same length as where the point of the hook is. And then you can kind of let your belly, maybe have a few longer fibers in there. This is going to sit within the Kreenik fibers, and it is just phenomenal. Really, really awesome stuff. And the way this fly works is incredibly versatile and highly effective. I mean, you don't get a lot of swipes, you just get eats. So we're going to take that same clump of Kreenik, and we're going to trim those butts, but we're going to tie it in backwards here, right behind the dumbbells. And again, this is where that thread neck behind the dumbbells is going to be real important. Pull your Kreenik fibers upwards and split it into 2 pigtails like that, and we're going to flip those down and underneath the dumbbells and back over the top and secure with a couple thread wraps here. And then trim. I like this belly chunk to be just a skosh longer than where the bend of the hook is. That way you're using that as reference for this next step, which is going to be important because of the point of the hook is there, and we don't want these things fouling when we're fishing. This part's a little trickier, so we're gonna take a little thinner chunk of Kreenik fibers, and we are going to, in this case, the camera side, gonna trim those nice and clean. This will save you some work in the long run here, and we're gonna tie those in pointed back on the camera side, up in that, on the top there. And we'll get a couple wraps here, and we're gonna use, now keep this tight, keep your bobbin tight. Your bobbin pressure can be enough, but I like to use my vice hand to hold it. And if you spin those Kreenik fibers and flip them down and around the jig so it's underneath that cone, and you're gonna tie them off right on that other side, and it's gonna mirror, be a mirror image of the side you tied them in on. And now you've got, we virtually completed the fly here. It's really simple, and it's got a beautiful profile. So we are going to add our UV red ice dub collar here, fill that gap up, and finish off with a half hitch behind there and glue it heavily. You won't need a dubbing clump in front of the dumbbells like we've done on other flies because of the Kreenik fibers being there. So that's important that you don't have such a thick clump for that overwing on the Kreenik fibers, because you won't be able to get your cone back on there. So I'm just going to coat my dubbing collar and the top there and prepare to slide my cone up. Now once I've got it glued, I'll trim the thread off, leave yourself a little tag end, and that's, again, going to be indestructible. Pop your cone forward on there and boom, you are in the game. Incredibly effective fly here, and one for any fishery. You can vary dumbbell colors and all that stuff, and Kreenik fiber colors, and just have a blast with it. Thanks for tuning in, and enjoy.